My sister-in-law left apartment listings on my bed and introduced me as Zayn's roommate after moving into our inherited house. When I asked why, she smirked and said, "Ownership and belonging are different things." I stayed quiet then, but a year later I found her outside, crying and begging me to forgive her. I thought losing our parents was the hardest thing I'd ever go through. But then, my brother Zayn married Erica, and what followed wasn't just heartbreak. It was a calculated, brutal war for our home, our memories, and eventually, our very sanity. And the worst part? She was winning. Zayn, my brother, and I were barely out of our teens when we lost our parents. I was 20. Overnight, their house became our house, this shared space we had to navigate. We had a rhythm, you know? A fragile peace. I cooked and cleaned, usually whipping up our grandmother's recipes every Sunday. Food that tasted like shared memories and comfort. Zayn handled the repairs. It wasn't perfect, not by a long shot, but it was home. It was our home. A sanctuary built on the wreckage of our grief. Then came Erica. She floated into our lives, and at first, she had her own place. But then, Zayn married her, and suddenly, she moved in. That's when the subtle shifts started, these tiny jabs that felt like paper cuts. She'd call it her houses to friends, never our house. She complained about the smells from my cooking, the very smells that had always filled our home with warmth. My toiletries vanished from the bathroom counter, replaced by her sprawling collection of skincare products. Our family photos, were unceremoniously moved to my bedroom, all to make way for her redecorating. Her Instagram feed became a highlight reel of her beautiful home, with me conveniently cropped out of every picture. But the real gut punch? That came when she dared to criticize my cooking. Not just any cooking, mind you. My grandmother's recipes. You need to understand, my grandmother's recipe book was sacred. She raised us after our parents died, and cooking with her became my grief therapy. That book held 40 years of recipes, brimming with her tiny, scrawled margin notes. Zayn's favorite? Needs extra paprika. Or, make this when Maya is sad. It was our history, our love, our legacy. I kept it right there, on the kitchen windowsill. When I tried to talk to Zayn about Erica, about these little attacks, his response was always the same. Just give her time to adjust. The gaslighting, it just escalated. Erica started claiming spice sensitivities, but could never quite name a single spice. She'd suggest healthier meals, clearly implying Grandma's cooking was bad for us. I tried to assert myself, reminding her I owned half the house. Her reply? Cold as ice. Ownership and belonging are different things. Zayn, my brother, just adopted a new motto: happy wife, happy life. Then came the financial manipulation. Erica was between jobs, so she suggested I pay for all the cleaning supplies because I use the kitchen more. Oh, and I should also pay for all the groceries because apparently she was allergic to my food choices. Before I knew it, I was footing 65% of the household expenses while doing 90% of the housework. The kitchen, once my sanctuary, became a war zone. Erica reorganized it weekly, constantly moving my grandmother's precious recipe book, complaining it was damaged, messy, or just in her way. She'd suggest I just scan them, muttering about how cluttered the old book looked, while her own collection of pristine, glossy cookbooks gleamed from custom shelves in the dining room. The absolute breaking point, the moment everything shifted, was on my grandmother's death anniversary. I was in the middle of preparing her memorial dinner, a tradition, a sacred memory, when Erica just breezed in and announced she'd forgotten and invited her parents over. "Could you just do your ethnic thing another night?" she asked with a sickeningly sweet smile. Zayn, my own brother, actually suggested I tone it down just this once. My blood ran cold. I refused. That's when her mask slipped. She snapped, telling me I needed to stop living in the past. Later, I overheard her speaking to her mother. "She just won't take a hint," she whispered. "Zayn's too attached. Once she accepts being a third wheel, she'll leave, and this house will finally feel like mine." I was blown away. When I confronted Zayn, he just insisted I misunderstood, that I was overreacting. Erica, clearly emboldened, started printing out apartment listings and leaving them on my bed. She introduced me to people as Zayn's roommate, adding how normal families have siblings move out when one marries. But the real explosion? That happened when I came home to find my grandmother's recipe book, my sacred book, in the recycling bin. It was covered in coffee grounds, pages torn, ink running, so many recipes utterly destroyed, including my grandmother's very last one. Erica claimed their cleaning lady mistook it for trash, but we'd never, not once, had a cleaning lady. Zayn, in his dazed compliance, actually defended her, suggesting I might have thrown it out and forgotten, even recommending therapy for my paranoia. That night, I heard them through the walls, discussing my mental health and persecution complex. I looked at Erica's pristine cookbook collection then. First editions, signed vintage books, Julia Child, appraised at $8,000. Some things are irreplaceable, she'd said proudly. That's when something snapped inside me. Malicious compliance, it was. I started cooking the strongest smelling dishes daily. I hosted huge family cooking parties. I labeled freezer items with traditional names Erica couldn't pronounce. After I hosted a 15-person curry night, Erica finally exploded. She screamed that this was her house, admitting she threw out my book as a favor because that filthy thing was contaminated. I recorded every single word of her meltdown. The very next morning, I sent that recording to Zayn, along with a lawyer's letter. I was forcing a house sale. Either he bought me out at market value, or we sold it and split the proceeds. I'd already signed a new lease. As I packed, salvaging what I could of the recipe pages, I went to grab some family photos that Zayn had let Erica store in the garage. That's when I saw it. A box labeled Mom's Jewelry. The exact box Erica had claimed was lost in the move. Inside, it wasn't just jewelry. It was documents, photos, things that made my blood run absolutely cold. What I found changed my relationship with my brother forever. My hands shook, as I pulled out the papers beneath the jewelry. The first page made my stomach drop. A printed screenshot of our family's Facebook profiles from 2 years ago, before Erica even met Zayn. Red ink covered the margins with notes analyzing our personalities. Next to my photo, emotional, attached to traditions, will resist change. By Zayn's picture, recently grieving, seeks stability, emotionally dependent. Our cousins, aunts, even distant relatives, all had annotations. Financial struggles, easily influenced, potential ally. I photographed everything with trembling fingers and texted the images to Zayn. My phone immediately lit up. Erica. The first voicemail was sickeningly sweet, asking if I needed help packing. By the third message, her tone had shifted to barely contained fury. She knew exactly when I'd found the box. 20 minutes later, Zayn burst through the garage door. He claimed Erica sent him to check on my mental state after I'd been acting erratically. But when he saw the documents spread across the workbench, his face went utterly pale. He picked up a page with his own profile analysis, reading Erica's handwritten note. Emotionally dependent. Will choose comfort over truth. Easy target. Deeper in the box, I found printed dating app conversations. Erica had specifically filtered for men who owned property and had deceased parents. Zayn's profile was circled in red ink with notes about the house value and his vulnerability indicators. The messages showed how she'd studied his interests, crafted responses to seem like his perfect match. My phone buzzed again, a text from Erica. I know what you found. We should talk like adults. The timestamp caught my attention. She'd sent it while I was still in the garage before Zayn could have told her anything. I glanced around and spotted it, a small camera tucked between storage boxes. Its red light blinked. I grabbed the box and headed inside, Zayn trailing behind me. He kept insisting there must be an explanation, that Erica wouldn't do this. But his voice lacked conviction. In the kitchen, I spread out more documents. Printouts of property records, house valuations, even Google Street View images of our home dated months before they met. My lawyer called back, advising me to document everything but warning against confrontation. Too late. Erica's car pulled into the driveway. I shoved the papers back in the box as she entered, her face a mask of concern. She immediately launched into how worried she was about my breakdown, how she'd already called my workplace, to explain I was having family issues. The next morning, I woke to find an emergency motion filed with the court. Erica claimed I'd stolen valuable property during my move-out, specifically mentioning the jewelry box. She'd documented its contents with photos from months ago, establishing ownership. My new landlord called an hour later about concerning information he'd received about my stability as a tenant. At the grocery store, my credit card declined, despite having plenty of funds. The bank's fraud department said there had been suspicious activity. After an hour on hold, I discovered Erica had added herself as an authorized user on my account months ago. She'd been monitoring every purchase, even buying items that matched my preferences to study my habits. The receipts showed purchases at stores I frequented, for brands I used. Erica arrived at my apartment that evening with a thick binder. She sat on my doorstep, refusing to leave until we talked. Inside that binder were photos, recordings, and documents dating back to her first visit to our house. Every interaction meticulously documented and twisted. A photo of me cooking became aggressive behavior in shared spaces. A recording of me venting to Zayn about work became evidence of my unstable temperament. Zayn's best friend, Jake, called me later that night. After a few beers, he admitted Erica had approached him months before the wedding, asking for advice about handling my difficult personality. She'd painted me as jealous and possessive, poisoning the well before I'd even met her. Jake honestly thought he was helping Zayn by keeping an eye on my concerning behavior. I dug deeper into the box. Property development plans. Our house sat on land recently rezoned for commercial use. A shopping complex developer had valued the plot at $3.2 million. The plans were dated 1 month before Erica's first message to Zayn on the dating app. She'd known about the development before she'd even met him. By the end of the week, local news picked up a story. Erica had strategically tipped them off about a family dispute involving property inheritance. The narrative painted me as a bitter sister who couldn't accept her brother's happiness. They used photos from Erica's Instagram where I'd been cropped out, making it seem like I'd never even lived there. My therapist, Dr. Aiken, called me in for an emergency session. She revealed that Erica had scheduled a concerned family member consultation months ago. While not violating any professional boundaries, Erica had planted seeds of doubt about my mental stability, asking if resistance to change and unusual attachment to objects were warning signs. Erica's social media campaign intensified. She posted old photos from my college years with captions about praying for healing and hoping I'd find peace. The implications were clear. She was suggesting I had substance abuse issues. The photos came from Zayn's private Google Photos account, which she now had access to. My work email suddenly filled with spam, causing me to miss critical client communications. My boss pulled me aside about complaints regarding my professionalism. Meanwhile, I learned Erica had befriended our office manager at their shared yoga class. The complaints all used similar phrasing, all filed during times I was in therapy. 3 of my cousins stopped responding to my messages. Erica had hosted a family healing circle, where she tearfully discussed my attacks on her marriage. She'd presented edited text conversations where my venting about family frustrations looked like threats, my own words twisted and recontextualized. The situation escalated when Erica produced a notarized document. During their honeymoon, she'd had Zayn sign papers granting her decision-making power in case of family disputes. The notary, her yoga friend who'd recently gotten her license. Everything technically legal, but ethically questionable. I tried accessing the house to retrieve more evidence, but found the locks changed. Security cameras now covered every angle, streaming directly to Erica's phone. She'd know the moment I stepped on the property. Zayn wasn't answering my calls, and when I drove by, I saw him through the window looking exhausted and pale. Through Jake, I learned Zayn had been experiencing severe migraines and chronic fatigue. Erica attributed it to stress from my behavior, but the symptoms matched sleep deprivation. Jake mentioned Erica's frequent midnight anxiety attacks that kept Zayn awake, her need for constant reassurance about my threats. Anonymous complaints about my hostile behavior multiplied at work, all filed during my therapy appointments. all using similar language about feeling unsafe around me. My reputation crumbled as Erica's narrative took hold. She'd been recording our conversations for months, editing them to create a pattern of escalating harassment. My closest friend, Sarah, began pulling away after Erica shared selectively edited texts. Messages where I'd vented about family frustrations were presented without context, making me look unhinged. Sarah had her own struggles and couldn't afford to be drawn into drama. Late one night, I found a website for a consulting business run by Erica's mother. The site was professionally designed but vague about services. Testimonials praised her for helping women secure their futures and protect their interests in relationships. An hour after I found it, the site went offline. A background check on Erica revealed 6 previous addresses in wealthy neighborhoods over the past decade. Short-term residences that ended around the same time as relationships. No criminal record. Nothing technically illegal, but a clear pattern. She was too smart to leave evidence of wrongdoing. I realized with growing horror that I couldn't go to the police. Everything Erica had done was technically legal. Recording conversations in a one-party consent state, filing truthful court documents, sharing her concerns with family. Meanwhile, my attempts to investigate made me look like the stalker she claimed I was. Erica began hosting weekly meditation sessions with Zayn, claiming they would help manage his stress. Jake described how she guided Zayn through visualizations about releasing toxic attachments and embracing new family dynamics. She used actual therapeutic techniques she'd learned from YouTube channels about cognitive behavioral therapy, twisting them to reshape his thoughts about family loyalty. My social media presence started disappearing. Old posts vanished after being reported for community guideline violations. Photos from family gatherings, graduation celebrations, even casual updates from years ago were systematically removed. Erica was rewriting my digital history, erasing evidence of my life in the family home. When I tried to contest the removals, the platform cited multiple reports from concerned users about inappropriate content. The discovery that shook me most came through my bank statements. Transactions I didn't recognize appeared in my history. Text messages I'd supposedly sent, emails from my account I had no memory of writing. Erica had created an entire parallel communication trail. Some messages to family members contained subtle threats or aggressive language that sounded like me, but expressed sentiments I'd never felt. The timestamps aligned with periods when I'd been asleep or at work. My teenage cousin Emma started defending Erica publicly on social media. Erica had offered to pay for Emma's SAT prep courses and college counseling sessions, presenting herself as the supportive family member investing in the next generation. Emma began using phrases about breaking toxic family cycles and choosing healthy relationships. Exact words from Erica's meditation scripts with Zayn. During a family video call I wasn't invited to, Erica shared screenshots from my therapy portal. Through Zayn's insurance access, she'd obtained records where I discussed normal sibling frustrations during grief counseling after our parents' death. She presented decade-old admissions about feeling resentful of sharing caregiving duties as current threats to their marriage. My private healing journey became her weapon. The mediation hearing arrived faster than expected. Erica had been building her case for months, presenting a timeline of escalating harassment that looked damning on paper. Every time I'd tried to talk to Zayn, she documented it as unwanted contact. My attempts to retrieve belongings became theft. My cooking sessions were reframed as deliberate acts of aggression. The mediator reviewed hundreds of pages of evidence that painted me as dangerously obsessed with destroying my brother's marriage. Desperation drove me to use Zayn's Netflix password to access his email account. His inbox revealed correspondence between Erica and someone called a family dynamics coach, dating back to before they'd met. The coach specialized in navigating difficult in-laws and had provided Erica with scripts, strategies, and psychological profiles for handling resistant family members. The consultation fees were paid through prepaid credit cards, leaving no direct trail to Erica. Further investigation revealed Erica had enrolled in online courses about interrogation techniques and influence tactics. The course materials included lessons on gaslighting, creating documentation trails, and legally protecting oneself while psychologically destabilizing others. She'd studied these methods systematically, taking detailed notes on application strategies. Payment records showed She'd used multiple prepaid cards purchased with cash. My Aunt Maria, who'd always been neutral in family disputes, suddenly sided with Erica. The timing coincided with Erica helping Maria refinance her mortgage at a favorable rate through a connection at her mother's company. What Maria didn't know was that Erica stood to profit from our house sale through the same company, a detail buried in the refinancing paperwork's fine print. When I tried showing the family printouts of Erica's research and planning documents, the confrontation backfired. Spectacularly. Erica burst into tears that seemed absolutely genuine, claiming I'd created fake documents out of jealousy. She sobbed about wanting nothing more than to be accepted into the family, while I stood there holding papers that made me look like a conspiracy theorist. The family comforted her, looking at me with disappointment and concern. Zayn's health deteriorated rapidly. Dark circles deepened under his eyes as Erica maintained strict control over his sleep schedule through manufactured crises. She'd wake him with anxiety attacks about my escalating behavior, need lengthy reassurance about their relationship, or discover emergencies requiring immediate attention. The sleep deprivation made him more susceptible to her suggestions and less capable of critical thinking. The family intervention Erica organized included a therapist who specialized in delusional disorders. This professional created clinical documentation of my condition based on Erica's careful presentation of evidence. Only later did I discover this therapist was a client of Erica's mother's consulting business. Though no direct payment trail existed, the session created an official record of mental health concerns that would follow me everywhere. My housing situation became precarious when I received an eviction notice from my new apartment. The property management company cited a background check that had somehow mixed my records with another person's criminal history. The same error occurred at 3 other apartments I applied to, always discovered after I'd paid non-refundable application fees. Each rejection pushed me toward homelessness while draining my savings. Erica made her first settlement offer through her lawyer. She would drop all claims of harassment and cease pursuing legal action if I signed an affidavit admitting to stalking behavior and agreeing to no contact with Zayn for 1 year. The document included clauses that would essentially erase my existence from the family. No attendance at holidays, birthdays, or family gatherings. Refusal would mean continued legal proceedings I couldn't afford. I refused the offer, but discovered my lawyer withdrawing from my case the next morning. His firm had suddenly received a major client referral from a company connected to Erica's mother's network. He claimed conflict of interest, but the timing was too convenient. 3 other lawyers I consulted suddenly became unavailable after initially expressing interest in my case. The real value of our family home emerged through deeper research. Beyond the commercial development potential, the property sat on mineral rights worth millions that our parents never knew existed. Erica had discovered this through her mother's property research business, which specialized in identifying undervalued assets in inherited properties. The discovery predated her first contact with Zayn by 6 weeks. Investigation into Erica's past revealed she'd successfully isolated and extracted property from 4 other families using variations of the same playbook. Each case followed a pattern. Identify a grieving family member with property, create emotional dependence, systematically isolate them from support systems, then extract the assets through marriage or legal manipulation. The victims were too traumatized or legally compromised to speak out. Every piece of evidence I'd carefully gathered was preemptively discredited by Erica's counter-narrative. She'd planted seeds of doubt months before any conflicts arose. Her journal entries describing my harassment predated our actual disputes. She'd told friends about my jealousy before showing any interest in the house. When I presented my timeline, hers already existed with earlier dates and witness corroboration. Sarah faced an impossible choice when her daughter needed expensive medical treatment. The insurance denial came just as Erica offered to help with the costs through her mother's charitable foundation. Sarah had to choose between believing my warnings and securing her daughter's health. She chose her daughter, sending me a final message that she couldn't be involved in the drama anymore. My last close ally was gone. Adopting Erica's tactics felt like crossing a moral line, but desperation drove me forward. I created false information trails about job opportunities and apartment viewings, then monitored who knew about these fake plans. The leaks led back to specific people. revealing Erica's intelligence network included my former coworkers, neighbors at my new apartment, and even the clerk at my regular coffee shop. I manipulated Erica's mother during a phone call, where I pretended to seek advice about dealing with a difficult situation, playing the role of a desperate woman. I got her bragging about Erica's success rate with difficult families. She revealed techniques for identifying vulnerable targets and strategies for legal protection while extracting assets. I recorded everything, but California's two-party consent laws made the recording illegal and inadmissible. The recording revealed the systematic nature of their operation, but obtaining it illegally opened me to prosecution. If I used it publicly, I'd face criminal charges. If I didn't, the pattern would continue. I was trapped between seeking justice and protecting myself from legal consequences that Erica had carefully orchestrated. Zayn's friend Marcus became Erica's newest ally after she connected him with a lucrative job opportunity through her network. He began monitoring my movements and reporting back to her, though he genuinely believed he was helping protect Zayn from a disturbed sister. The job came with subtle conditions about maintaining appropriate boundaries with certain people, meaning me. Harassment came from multiple directions as Erica activated her network of yoga friends, book club members, and social connections. They'd show up wherever I went, taking photos, making comments, creating an atmosphere of constant surveillance. The coordination happened through private group chats and coded social media posts, never direct enough to prove organized harassment. My resources drained rapidly. Legal consultation fees, lost work from damaged reputation, constant moving to avoid Erica's network, and the cost of trying to gather evidence left me financially desperate. Credit cards maxed out, savings depleted, retirement funds cashed early with penalties. Erica had predicted this financial destruction in her notes, timing her escalations to maximize economic pressure. The public confrontation at the grocery store was orchestrated perfectly. Erica approached me with concern about my well-being while I was exhausted and frustrated. When I tried explaining the conspiracy against me, she performed victimhood flawlessly. Other shoppers saw a disheveled woman ranting about plots and schemes, while a well-dressed, soft-spoken woman tried to help. Security footage would later show me as the aggressor. My storage unit containing family photos and heirlooms became inaccessible after Erica provided the facility with evidence of theft. The employee who processed the lock change attended Erica's spin class. Inside that unit were the only remaining photos of our parents, grandmother's handwritten letters, and family documents dating back generations. Losing access meant losing the last physical connections to my history. Living in my car became reality as housing options disappeared. Gym memberships provided shower access. Library parking lots offered safe sleeping spaces. And 24-hour restaurants became temporary refuges. I'd become exactly what Erica had portrayed: isolated, desperate, and appearing unstable to anyone who didn't know the full story. Her prediction had become a self-fulfilling prophecy. The revelation about my grandmother's recipe book hit hardest. Erica had studied grief psychology extensively, identifying that the book served as my primary emotional anchor after our parents' death. Her notes detailed how destroying it would cause maximum psychological damage at a carefully chosen moment. The timing, method, and aftermath were all calculated for optimal destabilization. She'd known exactly how much that book meant and used that knowledge as a weapon. Attempting to contact Erica's previous victims proved futile. My approach, born from desperation, terrified them into silence. They recognized the same frantic energy Erica had created in them, the same isolation and desperation. One woman hung up crying after I mentioned Erica's name. Another threatened to call police if I contacted her again. They'd been through this battle and lost, too traumatized to fight again. Emma's college acceptance was suddenly rescinded after an anonymous tip about academic dishonesty. The accusation was false, but required extensive documentation to disprove. The timing forced the family to question who was really helping and who was causing harm. Erica positioned herself as the supportive aunt, trying to fix the situation, while subtly implying my instability might have triggered the false report. Erica used Emma's situation masterfully, demonstrating how association with me brought misfortune. She organized family support for Emma while expressing concern about the negative energy surrounding anyone who maintained contact with me. The message was clear: align with Erica or face consequences. Though she'd orchestrated the entire situation, no evidence connected her to the anonymous tip. The last potential ally, Zayn's doctor, began questioning my concerns after Erica charmed him during appointments. She presented herself as the devoted wife managing a difficult situation with a mentally ill sister-in-law. The doctor started recommending Erica's wellness suggestions, meditation sessions, dietary changes, and sleep schedules that further increased her control over Zayn. Medical authority now supported her narrative. Desperation drove me to release everything online. I created a website documenting the entire conspiracy with timelines, evidence, and recordings. The site went viral briefly but backfired spectacularly. Without context or legal admissibility, I appeared to be a deranged woman targeting her successful sister-in-law. Erica's supporters flooded the comments with their own experiences of my harassment, drowning out any supportive voices. Police investigation into the mineral rights claim initially seemed promising until they discovered forged documents with my fingerprints. Erica had planted papers using my genuine signature from the destroyed lease agreement, creating evidence of attempted property fraud. The investigation shifted focus from her crimes to mine. Every step I'd taken to expose her became evidence of my criminal intent. Zayn's mental state deteriorated to the point where he couldn't make legal decisions. The timing aligned perfectly with deadlines Erica had orchestrated through systematic sleep deprivation. Her power of attorney activated just as crucial property decisions needed to be made. She now controlled both Zayn's medical care and financial decisions while maintaining the facade of a concerned wife. The true scope of Erica's plan emerged through pattern analysis. This wasn't just about our house, but establishing a precedent for her mother's business model. Successfully extracting property through marriage while avoiding legal consequences would create a template for future operations. They were building a systematic approach to property acquisition through emotional manipulation and legal maneuvering. Life insurance policies on Zayn had been quietly increased over months with Erica as sole beneficiary. Each increase was small enough to avoid scrutiny, justified by reasonable life changes. The cumulative effect created a multi-million-dollar payout potential. Everything technically legal, all documented as Zayn's willing participation, but orchestrated during periods of maximum psychological vulnerability. Accessing Zayn required creativity and moral compromise. I posed as a wellness coach at Erica's supervised healing retreat using fake credentials, mimicking her own tactics. The deception felt wrong, but necessary. Getting close to my brother meant becoming the manipulative person Erica had accused me of being. The transformation she'd predicted was complete. Reaching Zayn required deceiving innocent staff members, lying to other patients, and manipulating situations for private access. Each action validated Erica's narrative about my character while being necessary to save my brother. I'd become willing to harm others for my goal, exactly as she'd planned. The moral lines I'd sworn never to cross were obliterated by desperation. Successfully recording Zayn's confession felt like victory until I heard his words. He admitted knowing about Erica's control through sleep deprivation and emotional manipulation, but chose to stay. The grief of losing our parents had broken something in him. He couldn't handle losing another family member, even if that member was destroying him. His complicity was born from pain, making him both victim and accomplice. Erica's response was swift and decisive. She had Zayn committed for psychiatric evaluation, using my harassment as evidence of his breakdown. The recording I'd risked everything to obtain became proof of his mental instability rather than her abuse. Professional documentation now supported removing Zayn from any decision-making capacity while reinforcing my role as the dangerous element requiring protection. The final realization crushed remaining hope. Saving Zayn required proving Erica's pattern of predatory behavior. But every piece of evidence I'd gathered made me look like the predator she'd painted me as. The investigation techniques, the deception, the desperate actions all confirmed her narrative. I'd played directly into her hands, becoming the villain in her carefully crafted story, while she maintained the victim role perfectly. The workshop recording from Erica's mother revealed more than predatory tactics. Among the attendees, I recognized a woman describing her target, an elderly veteran named Benjamin who owned valuable waterfront property. She detailed her progress infiltrating his life through his grief support group, the same method Erica had used to find Zayn. The woman's notes showed Benjamin's adult children lived out of state, making him vulnerable to isolation tactics. Conscience battled with self-preservation. Warning Benjamin's family meant exposing myself to more scrutiny, but staying silent meant enabling another family's destruction. I spent 3 days tracking down his daughter, Alexandra, through social media, crafting messages that wouldn't sound deranged. The evidence I sent included workshop recordings, Erica's pattern documentation, and newspaper clippings from previous victims. Alexandra initially dismissed my warnings as spam until she noticed recent changes in her father's behavior. Sudden secretiveness about finances, mentions of a new friend helping with estate planning, missed family calls. She flew in immediately and discovered the woman had already gained power of attorney through manipulation during Benjamin's vulnerable moments. The family's intervention saved their property, but triggered consequences I hadn't anticipated. The woman at the workshop connected my warning to the leaked recording. Within hours, Erica filed criminal charges for stalking, harassment, and theft of intellectual property. The police arrived at the library where I'd been using computers, leading me out in handcuffs as patrons stared. The booking process felt surreal. Fingerprints, mugshots, and a bail amount I couldn't possibly afford. My public defender, overwhelmed with cases, spent 10 minutes reviewing my file before suggesting I accept a plea. The offer included admitting guilt to misdemeanor harassment, accepting a restraining order preventing contact with Zayn or Erica, and serving 6 months probation. Fighting the charges meant risking felony convictions and years in prison. The defender emphasized my documented, obsessive behavior made conviction likely. Sleep-deprived and desperate, I chose to fight. The decision meant remaining in jail until trial, sharing a cell with women facing their own battles with systems designed to break them. I used the law library to research similar cases, finding patterns in how predatory marriage schemes operated within legal boundaries. Other inmates shared stories of family members isolated and exploited through similar tactics. Erica's legal team delivered boxes of evidence to my defender. Among the materials were recordings spanning 2 years, each edited to remove context. A conversation where I joked about strangling Zayn during a sibling argument 10 years ago became evidence of violent tendencies. My frustrated comment about Erica getting what she deserved after a minor inconvenience transformed into a death threat. Every protective action I'd taken was recontextualized as obsession. The prosecution's narrative painted me as a disturbed woman who couldn't accept her brother's happiness. They presented my investigation techniques as stalking, my evidence, gathering as theft, my warnings to others as harassment campaigns. Erica's lawyer, polished and persuasive, wove together technically truthful statements that created a completely false picture. The jury included 3 people I recognized from Erica's social media, yoga classmates who'd already heard her version. Unable to afford a lawyer, I prepared my own defense using outdated legal books and advice from other inmates. Court procedures bewildered me. Objections I didn't understand, evidence rules that seemed designed to hide truth, legal language that obscured rather than clarified. I stood before the judge in an ill-fitting suit borrowed from the courthouse, facing Erica's team of 3 attorneys. The first day of trial revealed Erica wearing my mother's pearl necklace from the jewelry box. A calculated provocation. She'd styled herself as the perfect victim. Conservative dress, minimal makeup, tissues clutched in trembling hands. Her supporters filled the gallery, occasionally gasping at revelations about my crimes. My side remained empty, except for a court-appointed advocate who seemed more interested in her phone. Both sides presented evidence that revealed our mutual destruction. I showed Erica's planning documents, the dating app filters, the property research predating her relationship with Zayn. She countered with psychiatric evaluations, family testimony about my deterioration, and financial records showing my suspicious investigation expenses. Each piece of evidence I'd gathered at great personal cost was neutralized by her counter-narrative. The threat exchanges escalated through our lawyers. Erica's team hinted at additional recordings that could destroy any chance of future employment. I countered with evidence of her mother's broader network, suggesting investigation into their other victims. Neither of us could win without destroying ourselves completely. The judge watched our mutual annihilation with barely concealed frustration. Zayn's appearance in court shocked everyone. Against medical advice and Erica's attempts to prevent it, he'd signed himself out of the psychiatric facility. 30 pounds lighter with hollow eyes, he looked decades older than his years. His hospital gown peeked out beneath a hastily thrown-on jacket. Security moved to intercept him, but the judge allowed his testimony. His words shifted between supporting Erica and defending me, revealing the extent of his psychological fracturing. He described Erica's midnight anxiety sessions, but insisted she meant well. He admitted knowing about the property value, but claimed he didn't care about money. His rambling testimony included moments of clarity where he begged both of us to stop, punctuated by confusion about what year it was and whether our parents were still alive. Then the game changed. The prosecution introduced surprise evidence, a video deposition from Erica's ex-husband, recorded from an undisclosed location. His face partially obscured, he described an identical pattern from 8 years ago. He'd owned a small apartment building inherited from his grandmother when Erica targeted him through a grief support group. The systematic isolation, financial manipulation, and psychological destruction followed the same playbook. He'd been in hiding for 3 years after she'd destroyed his credibility so thoroughly that no one believed his warnings. His testimony revealed the full scope. Erica and her mother had destroyed dozens of families over 20 years. They operated just within legal boundaries, using actual therapeutic techniques for destructive purposes. The victims were too traumatized, discredited, or legally compromised to speak out. Those who tried faced the same character assassination I was experiencing. He'd lost everything warning others, and now lived under an assumed name. The courtroom erupted as more victims found courage to speak. Several people in the gallery stood up, identifying themselves as targets of the mother-daughter team. The judge struggled to maintain order as stories poured out. Inherited houses lost, families torn apart, reputations destroyed. But without proper legal procedure, their testimonies were inadmissible. Erica's lawyers successfully argued for a mistrial based on the disruption. Facing a retrial I couldn't afford and charges that could imprison me for years, I made my choice. Instead of pursuing criminal charges that might fail, I released everything online. Using Erica's own social media tactics, I created multiple platforms documenting the entire pattern. The evidence included recordings, documents, victim testimonies, and detailed analysis of their methods. I tagged every possible victim, authority, and news outlet. The viral spread happened within hours. Other victims added their stories, creating an avalanche of documentation Erica couldn't suppress. Her yoga studio connections, book club friends, and professional network began distancing themselves. The carefully constructed image crumbled as people recognized manipulation tactics in their own interactions with her. Several pending property deals fell through as targets became aware of the scheme, but exposure came at a price. Erica's team pursued civil suits for defamation, harassment, and emotional distress. My actions in releasing the information violated numerous legal agreements and court orders. The criminal charges remained active. Both our reputations were permanently destroyed in the mutual warfare. Local news covered the story as a cautionary tale of family feuds gone wrong, missing the predatory pattern entirely. Zayn required permanent assisted living care, his psychological damage too severe for independent life. The family house sat empty, tied up in legal battles between multiple claimants, including the state, creditors, and distant relatives. The property that had started everything became a monument to destruction. Windows boarded, lawn overgrown, grandmother's garden returning to wilderness. The extended family split into factions. Some blamed me for escalating the situation, insisting I should have accepted Erica despite her flaws. Others recognized the predatory pattern, but felt I'd gone too far in my response. A few supported my actions, but kept their distance, afraid of being pulled into ongoing legal battles. Family gatherings became impossible. The bonds severed by mistrust and accusations. Community opinion divided sharply. Support groups for Erica's victims formed online, sharing resources and warning signs. But equal numbers saw the situation as two unstable women destroying a family through mutual obsession. Local businesses I'd frequented banned me to avoid controversy. The grocery store where our confrontation occurred used our case in employee training about handling difficult customers. Months later, While serving probation and working cash jobs to survive, I received a message through my website. Another woman named Victoria described her sister's new boyfriend, who'd appeared shortly after their father's death. The patterns matched: sudden interest in family property, isolation tactics, sleep disruption disguised as anxiety. She begged for help, but I could only provide information, legally barred from direct involvement. I now run a food truck serving grandmother's recipes from memory. The salvaged pages were too damaged to use. Between customers, I maintain websites documenting predatory marriage tactics, careful to stay within legal boundaries. Zayn remains in assisted living, occasionally lucid enough to recognize me through the window when I deliver his favorite dishes. The house remains in legal limbo, its value dropping as development plans stall. Erica and her mother relocated to another state. Their business model adapted, but not abandoned. Local property records show similar patterns emerging in their new location. The patterns continue because the system enables them. Everything Erica did remained technically legal. Emotional manipulation isn't criminal, systematic isolation isn't prosecutable, and financial exploitation through marriage is protected by law. We destroyed each other in a war where victory was impossible, leaving only wreckage and warnings for others. The food truck's success varies daily. Some customers supporting my cause while others avoid the crazy stalker lady. I document new cases from a distance. Legally prevented from intervention, but compelled to bear witness. The cycle continues elsewhere, refined and evolved, preying on grief and trust within systems designed to protect predators who know exactly how far they can push without crossing legal lines.